So it's about the year 2035, and the colonization of Mars is finally about to speed up. In the last episode, we saw the expansion of the Chinese colonies and the American colonies, and many other European countries such as France, the UK, and the EU begin to colonize Mars. And today the colonization will continue, as many more countries will colonize Mars. Okay, so at the end of the last video, hopefully you all watched to the end, right? You should have. But if you didn't, well, I mean, shame on you, but there was a massive explosion in this area here. There's also lots of radiation in that area now, and the US and, well, every single other country on Mars here, as well as some other Western countries, they all accused China of detonating a nuke on Mars, which according to the Outer Space Treaty is not allowed, because you can't put your military in space. I mean, technically you also can't claim land in space or on other planets, but we're gonna obviously be ignoring that here, because otherwise you can't colonize. But most of the countries here have agreed that you shouldn't be detonating nukes here. Elon Musk has said that he wants to nuke Mars to warm it up, but that's obviously a bad idea if you already have humans living here. Mars is a much smaller planet than Earth, about a quarter of the size of Earth, or a third of the size of Earth, kind of in between that. And so the impact a nuke would have on a region of Mars is going to be a lot larger than it would on Earth, just because the regions are smaller and the nukes are the same size. So right now there's a large radiation zone on Mars, about this large, and basically the whole world is pointing their fingers at China and saying, hey, why'd you do that? That wasn't very smart. But China will deny that it was them, but in retaliation, the EU is going to expand their colony inwards towards this region to kind of start to block off China. And they're actually going to make another settlement closer into this region. I mean, I don't know why you're going to walk into a radiation zone and put a whole bunch of people there, but that's what they do. They also add a couple more research bases to the area. And also in retaliation to that, China's going to go and make more research bases throughout their trade route. Again, I really don't know what to call these, so just tell me in the comments. They also make some research bases out here. They also make a settlement here, a settlement here, and a settlement here. So right now, China is the most populous colony on Mars. I mean, no surprise, they're the most populous country on Earth. But a lot of countries aren't fans of that, because now China has expanded along this entire route and gone to encompass this settlement here, and also these research bases. That also includes basically that entire radiation zone from that nuke that China probably detonated. But now China is quite clearly the largest colony on Mars. And in retaliation to that, the US will continue to expand their colony, getting a lot closer to China, but also thickening out up north and moving up towards France. France will also do this, and they actually now border the United States on Mars. And this looks like it could be France's longest border. Because if you didn't know, the longest border of France is actually with Brazil through French Guiana. But now I think it might actually be with the US through their Martian colony. Actually, it's definitely on Mars, because this is actually kind of huge. But France will actually expand this way along this trade route, which they will hopefully connect up with the United Kingdom soon. And speaking of the United Kingdom, they also begin to move along their trade route, claiming a lot more land past where they've even built the route, but also moving down towards Japan. Speaking of Japan, they were one of the first countries to colonize Mars, surprisingly. But in the last episode, they didn't do anything. They stayed very small, and they mainly just focused on research. Well, that is no more, as they will now begin to colonize a lot more. And we now actually see our second border on Mars, as they now meet up with the United Kingdom. And finally, we actually see the EU and Japan also link up, basically forming a large ring all the way around China. And China is not happy about that. They're going to try and get some more of their allies to begin colonizing Mars. But as I've said before, there really isn't a lot of countries that China allied to that could colonize. I mean, it's Pakistan, Russia, North Korea. But that's really it, and I don't even see them doing that. But going over here to East Asia, we have a new event taking place, and it's Japan opening up their colony to not just Japan. It is now a joint colony with South Korea. So kind of how the EU has colonies, but it's mainly just run by these couple countries in green, mostly just Germany. Japan's colony is under Japan, but it's also administered by South Korea. This actually angers North Korea, who, believe it or not, actually make it to Mars and set up a very small colony over here. They set up their main base right over here by China. Then they link it up with the Chinese trade route. So I guess it is kind of now a trade route going between more than one country. See, I guess that would be the same with all these other ones too, but yeah. But North Korea will also make a settlement over here, and over here. So despite being this small, they actually have more settlements than Japan even. And for research bases, they have one here and one here. Not a lot. Speaking of research bases, the US will actually build a couple more out here in the land they recently just annexed. But they also add another settlement out here and down here. They also move some people over here and over here. So they're kind of building up like a metropolitan area right here where there's going to be a bunch more cities. They actually put another one right there. And then they actually build another settlement out here because they need to compete with China, right? France builds another settlement right here near the US border, and the British build one near the Japanese border, and on the very end of where they have their trade route. The Japanese finally build their second settlement down here by their border with the EU, and one up by their border with the UK, as well as another one right here. The EU build one up by their Japanese border, one right here, and then that's it for them. But we can now go and color in North Korea. And speaking of more colonies, we have another country colonizing. I told you there's going to be a lot of colonizing in this video. They will be colored in orange, and they will be right here. It's not going to be too large, but it's pretty good size. And then in retaliation to this colony, this country's largest enemy, their largest rival country, will go and make their colony right here. Their capital will be down here by China for some reason, and theirs is going to be kind of centered but more northern towards the UK. Any other settlements they have will be here, here, and up here. Theirs will be here, 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 and here. It's actually quite a lot. And research bases, I'll just dot these around. They don't really matter. Then they're going to need some trade routes. This one actually links straight up with China, going to this city and their capital, but also linking together all of their other settlements. The route between France and the UK actually finishes, and this route will actually link up to them. This country also finishes this route, linking it up to the UK. So now every single country on Mars is connected. A lot of them have to go through China, but they are connected. Now, if you couldn't guess what these countries are, they're India and Pakistan, of course. India here, Pakistan here. And this is basically just Pakistan and North Korea answering China's call for some of their allies to get over here. And we actually see a couple more explosions over in this area, basically confirming that China and North Korea are doing nuclear tests on Mars. Maybe Pakistan's in that too, but maybe not. And a lot of countries are actually mad about this. And we actually see a large mobilization of Mars. Basically just throwing the Outer Space Treaty out of the window. That whole treaty is just completely irrelevant now. There is now mass mobilization on the Red Planet, and we could be seeing the start of a new world war. But it wouldn't just be World War III, it would be World War I? I don't know. It would be an interplanetary war. There'd be fighting on Mars, fighting on Earth, and in the next episode, we could see, well, fighting on Earth and fighting on Mars. So make sure you come back next week. And now there is another country colonizing Mars. Again, I said there's going to be a lot of colonizing in this video. They go up here near kind of the snow, taking over quite a large area. And take a guess on who you think this is. I can guarantee you it's not who you think it is. They're going to have to put their city down here where it's a little bit warmer. Then again, most of their settlements are probably underground or in giant domes. So it's a little more livable, I guess you could say. Nonetheless, though, they'll have 3 other settlements. Research bases, they'll have a couple more northern, even some not in their territory technically. Then for their routes, their country is actually pretty connected. They even go up into this base. The US immediately begins to build a route out to them. Same with France. They actually build out from this city too. and this one, just to kind of link up over here. Eventually, all of these routes are connected. They actually build down from this city here, down to the trade route over there. And India wants direct access to Japan, so they just build like that. The EU also builds up to this route. China builds a route with India, although it's not very well liked by Pakistan, because they're kind of hoping in order to get to China, everyone have to go through them, because then they get all the money. But now everyone over here can just go through India, and they don't like that. Now, if you couldn't guess who this country was, well, you better do it now, because I'm going to color them in. And if you said it was Algeria, you're wrong, because it's Canada. Well, there, Canada. Now, I don't know how long this would last for. A lot of you guys are calling for independence for a lot of different regions. So I'm going to say it just like I did last week. It's not going to happen in this video. We've seen a couple of changes to the world map, such as the Ukraine war resolution. And I think there was one other thing. I don't remember what it is, though. We're actually going to do one thing. It's not the independence thing. I'll get to that in a second. But it is the beginning of the formation of the East African Federation. Kenya and Tanzania are uniting together, along with Burundi and Rwanda, to form the East African Federation. That's what they're calling themselves. There is now the DRC, South Sudan, and Uganda who want to join, and they're in actual plans to join. But other countries such as Somalia, Ethiopia, Mozambique, and Malawi actually want to join, but they're not actually trying to join right now. They just have shown interest in this scenario. And now for one final event of the video, a lot of people around the world are extremely unhappy with colonizing Mars. They see that a lot of these countries are detonating nukes there, and they do not see it as, well, important, because they feel like we should be focusing on Earth and not, well, going to other planets, just trash stuff there. And so there are huge protests in Japan to go against colonizing. There are large protests in the UK, particularly in Scotland. There are lots of protests in France, particularly in French Guiana and the southern regions, but also throughout. And then many countries in the EU, such as the ones that aren't colonizing, continue to boycott or not support the colonization of Mars by the countries who are colonizing it. Nonetheless, Czechia and Finland will also join the board for colonizing Mars. Same with Denmark. They see it as a way to kind of increase their standing on the international scale. Portugal and Romania will also join this. And we actually see Ukraine trying to join the EU. Again, there's also lots of protests in the USA against colonizing Mars. And in Canada, obviously there's people against it, but there isn't large-scale protesting just yet. And so yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Make sure to leave any suggestions for the series or just other videos below. So make sure you subscribe. We're trying to get to 5K before the end of this year. And so yeah, leave a like if you enjoyed. Go check out some of my other videos. And so yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good rest of your day.